thank you for your suggestion. But, yeah.
Hey, wondering if we should wait till we got the
Well,
next month.
yeah, okay, now,
Got a new member coming on,
I know.
and then Chuck not being here.
Yeah, so now look, let me ask Pat. Pat made a suggestion that I make a nomination.
Yeah, we may want to wait.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Andrew, let me get your thoughts on something. They were talking about possible chair back there at this meeting. We may want to wait till we have a new member on board next week. Chuck is here. Since Pat's talking,
Yeah.
weird, one of these members not even here.
Yeah, because in his absentee, I mean, Pat suggested I make the motion that we, I mean, what do you think?
They want to wait.
I agree too. I don't, I don't let Pat, we should let Pat know. What do you think? Yeah. I agree.
That movie is coming on next month. Right.
Okay, I agree.
She started next month, right? She'll be here today. But it's official next month. Okay. We're thinking maybe since we got the new member starting next month, Chuck will be here, and we do the election then. Instead of with 5 members here and Chuck not being here.
I don't think it matters one way or the other. Where is it on the agenda? Yeah. Yeah, because I either want to do it at the end of today or the beginning of next. I have a variance request coming to you guys next week.
Oh,
And so we need to have we need a chair and a vice chair, because I'm going to have to leave to go ask you guys to give me a variance. So,
It'd be fine, because normally if you are earnest with it, it would be, so I think if we, are we expecting much on the agenda next week? No.
I think with 5, I don't see why, the new people are going to do whatever we do anyway. And I think we'd be able to do it in 60 seconds. Right?
okay, I agree.
Let's just,
You want to get over it.
right, and he did tell me he would be willing to do it. I mean, I didn't have to offer him much. Good morning. You ready to go? Okay. Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to the March meeting of the Columbia Board of Zoning Appeals. My name is Patrick Hubbard. I'm the vice chair of the board. Our chair has moved on to bigger and better things with the Planning Commission, so I will be conducting the meeting today. I'd like to start by introducing the other members of the board. To my far left is Calhoun McMeekin. Next to him, next to me, is Reggie McKnight. Preston Young to my right, and our newest member, Tyler Gregg, on the end to the right. I'd also like to introduce the members of the staff who do yeoman work between meetings and will be helping us here today. Brian Cook is the zoning administrator. Andrew Livengood is the deputy zoning administrator, and Andrea Wolf is the senior secretary for planning and development services. We're here today to hear applications for special exceptions and variances today. All testimony is recorded. Anyone wishing to speak will need to be sworn and must come up to the podium to speak. I stress it's important that you be at the podium because the meeting is being recorded and we need the microphone to pick up what you might say. So no testimony can be taken from the floor. For those of you who plan to speak today, you must be sworn. So if you are here as an applicant or as to someone else to speak on the case, please stand at this time and raise your right hand. Do you affirm or attest that the testimony you will give today is the truth and nothing but the truth? Thank you. At this time, I'll turn things over to Mr. Cook.
Thanks, sir. If I could just remind the board members, the microphones, when they speak, to cut them on and kind of pull them close so we can make sure we can pick up the voices. That would be great. We'll start today with the consent agenda. I will read or announce each case description on the consent agenda. Unless a board member requests that a case be removed from the consent agenda after it is read or announced, the items on the consent agenda will not be discussed. The cases will be considered with one motion. Therefore, if someone present would like to discuss an item on the consent agenda, it's imperative that they raise their hand or otherwise get the attention of the board chair after the specific case is read or announced. And the only item that we have today on the consent agenda is approval of the February 9th, 2016 minutes. Mr. Chairman, is anybody on the board, on the audience?
Is there anyone who wants to speak concerning the approval of our minutes? Do I hear a motion from the board?
So moved.
I hear a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Shall we move to new business, Mr. Cook?
Yes, sir. Under new business, our first case, 16-006, special exception at 120 Atlas Court, tax map 16306-0706. Special exception to establish a recycling center. Currently on the property is approximately 37,800 square foot warehouse that has been vacant for some time. The applicant wishes to move into the building and establish a recycling center on the site. property is zoned heavy industrial. Heavy industrial zoning district is one of or the most intense district as far as uses. It's basically designed for manufacturing, industrial uses, permitted uses that could potentially go in M2, textile, lumber, steel, rail yard, petroleum, manufacturing. So it's a pretty intense district. The proposed use, according to the application, is a facility, a baling plant, and the primary intended use of the property will be collection, sorting, and baling and distribution of recyclable paper and corrugated paper products. There are, based on 17-273 of our zoning ordinance, specific requirements for a recycling center. That would be 1 through 6 in your packet. The adjacent use is zoned, or the adjacent zoning is zoned M2. The Sensor Electronic Technology Incorporated is on the parcel to the northwest. The East Lake residential subdivision to the northeast across the ditch and a natural buffer, and it's zoned RG2. A large undisturbed area is to the rear of the subject property, and if you should be inclined to approve this request, staff would respectfully request that a condition of approval be that the recycling center operates substantial conformance to the application, submitted materials, and the board regarding the operation, and shall conform to our relevant city development regulations, including, but not limited to, screening, landscaping, and buffer yards. I believe the applicant is here, can answer any questions, and also believe there are some adjacent neighbors that would like to speak as well.
Is the applicant?
I'm Kevin Bailey. Scott Grounds is our regional sales manager. He'll be speaking on behalf of Pratt today.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for this opportunity to talk with you. My name is Scott Groundsel. I'm this regional sales manager. I have the southern region, which takes care of 2 of our 4 mills, Shreveport and Conyers area. A little background, I've been in the industry since 1972, so this fall will be 44 years, 15 years running an operation very similar to what this is. Let me tell you a little bit about Pratt and who we are. We're mainly a box manufacturing company. You would probably recognize our boxes in that we make the Postal Service, if it fits, it ships, are all Pratt boxes. If you go into a Home Depot and buy boxes for moving, those are Pratt boxes in the Home Depot. We also provide, major customers are Procter & Gamble, Diageo, Cummins engines. We have a whole list of industries that we do, but I stress that we're mainly a box manufacturer. Pratt is the 4th largest box manufacturer in the United States. We are the largest privately owned box manufacturer in the United States. The purpose of this center is to collect paper to send to our paper mill to be recycled. We have centers. We have another center already in South Carolina, in Duncan, South Carolina. This will be a center where we intend to collect, process, and bale recycled paper and corrugated paper products. I have a picture that because I think it's uncertain about what our facility. This happens to be our Rock Hill, South Carolina facility. It's been open for a couple years now. This was taken just an afternoon last week. In the afternoon, a picture of the facility. You'll see that we keep our facilities very neat. We do not store or hold anything outside of the building. Everything is kept in the building. The next picture will show what it would look like on the inside of the building. Also, this is the same baler and same equipment that we will use to put into the building that we're talking about today. We're going to do on this building, we're going to, one modification in the building is at the very back of the building. We will put a door, and this is off-centered. We're going to put it in the center of this back side, and that is for trucks to be able to come in and pull into the facility, dump the material, and then leave. At that point, we'll push it over onto the conveyor belt that you saw in this picture and bale. As you see in the background of this picture, they're bale stored for processing. We expect the traffic to be approximately 17 loads per day inbound. This will be mainly front-end loader trucks, small trucks bringing in 3 to 5, 6 tons. Outbound will be about 5 a day, which will be 20-ton truckloads, and those will be 53-foot tractor-trailer trucks. The equipment that we'll be using here, and as you see in this picture, is a high-density baler with the ability to bale 12 to 15 tons per day. This baler has a 100-horsepower motor on it. The decibel rating for this is 80 to 90 decibels. This is the equivalent of, on the low end, of a dial tone or vacuum cleaner to a high end of a railroad whistle 500 feet away, to give you an idea of the noise that will be generated, or lack of noise that will be generated. It'll also have a mister on the baler for controlling the paper, which also has a secondary impact of removing any residue in the air that might be from paper falling. There's about a 10, 12-foot drop that paper does. Naturally, if you dropped a box of paper on this floor, you'd have a little bit of flow coming from it. We will have, we expect to have 5 53-foot trailers a day that will carry 20 tons out. The trailers will come onto a scale, as it's in the lower part of the picture. It's a 50-foot scale, truck scale, with, 70 with 30-foot egress and ingress on either side for the approach by the trailer. The trailers will be monitored by a stoplight and a intercom system that is controlled in the office. When a truck comes in, they will come in, back into a dock, be loaded, and then go out. And that's a 70-foot 70-foot scale. We'll have on the property, we will normally have 1 to 2 tractors and 3 to 4 front-end loader containers, and there will be some bins that would be stored. Nothing will be stored outside. There is nothing that is in violation of stormwater runoff, no open containers with anything in it that will cause a problem, nothing stored outside. Anything that comes in that is not suitable for recycling, paper recycling, will go into a container that will be taken to the landfill. Excuse me, I'm fighting allergies. All of the equipment and activity will be on the undeveloped side of the building. There is, on the bottom side of this picture up here, there is a open field. I guess it's for future development. There has been some question about air quality and activity vibration. I was previously with Caraustar Industries before coming with Pratt, and I was director of operations. As director of operations, I had the director of safety reporting to me. We did extensive research and ongoing research with a dosimeter to check the decibels. The only place in a plant that has a noise level that required would be require hearing suppression would be in the plant, in a plant where there is a hogger, which is a super 150-pound grinder. We're not going to be doing that here. Our main process is to bring in clean material and to bale it and send it out. We mainly use mixed paper and corrugated, and that will be our main product that comes in. As far as noise, we also, air quality. We always ran tests for the need, if there was an OSHA requirement for a respirator, and there was no finding of where we needed a respirator. Now, this is in another company, and it was 9 different plants that I was responsible for. But we have gone through the testing, and we meet OSHA requirements on noise and air quality. Again, to say that we will have the 5 trucks shipping out. We will have trucks coming in to bring material in. That's normally morning and late afternoon. It's going to be the front loader. If you've been to a McDonald's or any place where you see cardboard only, that is the kind of material that we mainly will be picking up, and that will be coming in. But there had been question about the traffic, and I was out there yesterday afternoon, and I would venture to say there's probably not going to as much traffic on Atlas Road from our operation than there is from 4 to 4:15 any afternoon out there. So I don't think that the amount of traffic will impact that negatively, other than what is already there. A concern for ultra-clean environment. Pratt makes a major amount of pizza boxes. We also make other food items for Kellogg's, Procter & Gamble, and the major concern that we have is that you cannot have anything that has any contamination of food products or anything that would create an odor. You would not want to open a pizza box that smelled like a kitty litter box. So we're adamant that we have a clean environment, and we want clean material for our product. If we have any contamination, we either eliminate it or we stop taking the material. So we are very diligent about keeping our material clean. There were a couple things that were made that we got yesterday in a rebuttal or statements that I feel are not really need a little further explanation. There was a negative comment about inherent byproducts and unintended consequences. What are we talking about here? That's just a phrase to scare everybody. And then there was a statement of conduct of lawful manner. We follow the law and always have. I've never been in a situation where there hasn't been anything like that. And affect highly sensitive equipment, how? We're self-contained into a building. There will be nothing, and we're also uniquely away from the building next to us. We just don't see where that's going to be a problem. Pratt will also have a multi-million-dollar impact to the community, saving landfill space, cleaning the environment, saving natural resources, putting money into the economy. I'd like to take a phrase from Forbes magazine, August of 2015. In the past 15 months alone, the company, based in Conyers, Georgia, has invested nearly $450 million in America. A little bit about what we do and the impact of Pratt on the United States is we save 51,000 trees a day. We eliminate 3,000 tons of emissions. We save 21 million gallons of water a day. We have 9,900 cubic feet of landfill space a day, and we generate 4,000 green-collar jobs. We are a good corporate citizen. We are interested in being a good citizen in this community, and we don't see where our operation will have anything but a positive impact to the community. Thank you.
Let me ask a couple of questions, please.
Yes, sir.
First, in talking about traffic, how many employees will be here?
Probably, we think about, we were trying to 7 employees. We mainly, you mainly have the office staff, and then you'll have someone pushing onto the conveyor belt and loading. Forklifts and skid steers will be on the inside.
So in terms of traffic, you have 17 incoming trucks, 5 outgoing trucks.
Approximately, that's what we're
Approximately.
estimating, yes,
It'll
sir.
vary day to day.
Yeah.
And 7 employees.
Yes, sir.
And do any customers come? Or-
No, we do not buy from the outside. We do not have any traffic coming in. We have approximately 60 different vendors that we buy from, so they're different ones, but they're also, some of them are picked up in multiple with other, in the front-end loader, but we do not buy from the public.
And as I understand it, the way you've described this, everything is self-contained?
Yes,
so
sir.
Noise and fumes and all that
Yes, sir.
will be contained within the building?
Yes, sir.
And you're not really changing much the current orientation and spacing of buildings? Is that
No, we're not changing anything. The only thing we are adding is the back door so that we can bring the trucks in. The doors on this side in the picture up there, there's only one ramp. We need to have it ground level where the trucks can drive in. They normally back in, dump the material, and then leave.
So there's nothing here that's going to have an impact on public safety or nuisance? or
No,
anything like that?
it shouldn't, I mean, not unless they're wandering in our backyard. We also, there had been some notion of if we need to put in a fence barrier or shrubbery, we're quite willing to do it. We do that in all of our operations. Our operations have been known for being aesthetically pleasing to the public.
So if anything, it will be aesthetically better than it is today?
Yes, sir.
And then you would be the only business like this in the area?
Pardon?
You would be the only business like this in the area?
Yes,
There are no
I don't
other-
think, we're not like a sort of a lot of waste paper operations, they call it, is completely different. They buy from the public, they dump on the outside. We don't do that. We're mainly interested in material we can recover, mainly industrial use. We are going after commercial corrugated. Amazon is a big one of our is also a big one of our customers here. We, not only do we buy the material on quite a few of the Amazon locations, we also are very active in developing boxes for them. Again, we are a box manufacturer.
And you said, you think, given that it's a manufacturing distance, you're compatible with the district as a whole?
Yes, sir, I believe. We're not doing anything different than what some of there's a pipe manufacturer that are bringing in pipes and putting it on the outside and shipping them out. There's a roofing distribution center that is doing the same thing. I don't see that we're doing anything any different. We're bringing in material inside, baling it, pushing it, and then loading it and sending it out. And it is commercial and not resident, to the residents.
And I heard your testimony. I just want to summarize here. You think it's in the public interest to go ahead and have this particular facility at this site?
Pardon, I'm not sure.
Do you think it's in the public interest to have this facility at this site?
Well, we do presently. We're in West Columbia, so it will benefit Columbia. We have been in a site where we've leased part of a building for several years, and so we do think that for servicing the Columbia area, this is better location for us than where we were.
Great. There are requirements in the code concerning recycling centers in particular, and I gather you have looked at them. There are 6 requirements about
Yes, sir.
storage inside, front yard.
Yes,
Is
sir.
it your testimony that you will comply with all of these?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you mind making that a condition of approval?
No, we're perfectly happy with that.
Would you mind also saying that, as a condition of approval, what you have described today? By that, I mean a paper recycling plant of the type and nature that you have described today. That is indeed what will be there. The
Yes,
reason I
sir.
say that sometimes there's a concern that you get a big generic approval, and then 5 years later, something within the
Most
big
likely, if
list-
5 years later it was changed. This has been the model that we use. We use two models, this type of facility. The other is a multi-recycling facility where we actually bring material in and sort it and separate plastics from aluminum. And that is not at this facility. I would venture to guess that if we did, that it would probably involve another facility.
And so on the whole, everything that you do, if you get the special exception, will be in substantial compliance with what you've said today.
Absolutely.
And the documents you've filed.
Yes, sir.
And you understand that if there's an abandonment or vacancy for a year, you would have to come back if you wanted it again.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, there's this thing about that if a special exception goes on and then stops, and then there's over a year before they want to start it up again, they have to ask permission again.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure you
Yes, sir.
understand.
No, we're ready to move on. We have the equipment ready. We have the lease in place, and the owner wants to lease to us. And so we're ready to go with this.
Does any,
I would like to clarify on the air quality system, when he was talking about administering, actually a fine mist water system. It's a fine mist water system we put on our balers. So as the paper falls into the baler, that's where your paper dust is created. This mist is designed to keep that dust down and back into the baler. So that's why we say we can assure a dust-free atmosphere
so you're keeping dust down within the building and thus
within
no
the baler
problem?
itself.
Yeah.
Right.
outside, yeah. Does anyone else have a question? Anyone member of the board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here today who'd like to speak in favor or in opposition to the request?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Robert Fuller. I'm an attorney here in Columbia, and I'm here today representing an opponent to this particular special exception. The next door neighbor to the property that is proposed for the special exception is a company named Sensor Electronics Technology Incorporated. It is a very specialized high-tech development and production company that deals in matters that require an extraordinarily clean atmosphere. The concern that Sensor has to the application for special exception is that at the end of the day, what is being requested for location on this property is a waste paper recycling center adjacent to the facility that they have owned and operated for years. At the end of the day, what comes in, no matter how clean it is portrayed, is waste paper and cardboard. It is dumped, shredded, baled, and processed inside the facility, and when it leaves as waste paper product on trucks. That is an operation with which my client is not fully familiar, so everything that we are raising as a concern today is just that. It is a significant concern because of the nature of their own business.
Mr. Fuller, it would help me and maybe some other members of the board if I could stop you just a moment and ask, could we see the diagram of a map? I'd like to know where his client is in relation to, if you don't mind, that would help me see what's
You put it back. We'll touch on that, yes.
right.
It is the property that is immediately north and perhaps slightly west of this of the site.
So it's the adjacent property.
It is the adjacent property. It is the property that is subject to the special exception shown on the screen now is bounded by the yellow marking. And to my left, your right, the commercial building next to it is Sensor's property. At present, there is now an expansion of the Sensor facility coming towards the special exception property, which will add, the building that you see there is approximately 13,000, 14,000 square feet of laboratory, manufacturing, processing building. The expansion is approximately twice that at 27,000 square feet. It'll be on a slide that we will show you shortly. But it is coming in close proximity to the applicant building here. One of the concerns is, in fact, that we have referred to it as the Shaw Building or the Pratt Building. It is very, very close to the property line. It's less than 12 feet from the common property line to the Sensor property. And the activity that will be taking place in the recycling center will very shortly be in very close proximity to the activities that are going on in the Sensor building. And the relative dynamics of the two propositions are remarkably different. One, the Sensor property is essentially a manufacturing laboratory that requires an ultra-clean environment, extraordinarily sensitive equipment, and the disturbance of the atmospheric conditions in that environment would be wholly detrimental to the operations of that existing business. We are not completely sure about, and certainly are not comfortable with, the assertions that are made, I am assuming in good faith and with some knowledge by the applicant, Pratt. But without knowing the character and the nature of the business that's going on next door to them, I don't think they are in anything more than a position to assert with simply bold confidence that they are not going to adversely impact it. They have no real idea what does go on in there and the conditions that are required to keep it that way. You will hear from the company representative on the degree of scrubbing devices, air filtration equipment and the necessities for it, and the degree and the significant amount of activity that has to be applied to making this environment available for the production of their business. I want to call to your attention, in addition to the 8 special exception criteria that are required for the application and approval of any special exception, the additional 6 components that relate to recycling facilities need to be taken into consideration, obviously, in your consideration of this particular matter. One thing that I would call to your attention, and we presented to you a responsive piece that addresses each of the 8 criteria and the reference to Section 17273 provisions relating to recycling centers per se. But I want to call to your attention as a backgrounder for all of this, the overarching consideration for this special exception is that in addition to the normal criteria, the recycling facility is required to comply with any and all requirements determined by this board for the protection of adjacent areas and uses. That's in addition to the general requirements for protection of public interest, protection of public safety, and for protection of the general vicinities. This is an M2 zoning district. They are seeking a special exception in that M2 district. It would be required to meet only the 8 criteria if they were not a recycling facility, but they are. And one of the unique features here for this is that the recycling facility is bound and required to take into account the specific nature of its neighbor. Because the requirement is it cannot make a part of its activity that will adversely affect that adjacent interest. When you look through the criteria material, we've addressed each one individually. Atlas Court is not a thoroughfare, it's a short cul-de-sac street. It does not have a signalized intersection at Atlas Road. The truck traffic on it is already significant. Sensa knows that because they're there. They see it every day. The trucks that queue up and provide service to all of the businesses are already in place. The addition of these large, open-backed trucks hauling waste paper products are going to significantly pound on that road. They are going to increase the traffic markedly, both at the intersection and during the course past Sensa and into their property. It is going to create a difference, and we are concerned in part about the vibration and the activity of the truck traffic going specifically to that recycling facility and coming back out of it. They're coming and going during the course of all day. They say that it won't have an impact on adjoining properties in terms of the environmental factors: noise, lights, glare, vibration, fumes, odor, obstruction of air or light, and litter. We submit to you that in terms of what goes on this property, the adjacent neighbor has a legitimate specific concern beyond the general requirements of protecting against things that are not aesthetic, that need to be screened from view, that may be unsightly. That's not the complaint objection here. This is a very direct interference with the ability of the other company to continue doing business if there is dust pollutant in the air, if there is a vibration quality about this activity that's taking place 12 feet from the property line. Those are things that would not concern a wholesale grocery distribution company. They wouldn't concern many other types of activity that were going on next door. But they do concern Sensa Technology because of the nature of what they have next door. They are in the process of expanding this business, which was originated and developed in the university incubator here and has developed into a worldwide producer of ultraviolet and light-emitting diode equipment that's used everywhere on the planet and in outer space. The laboratories and the equipment and the provisions to do that are significant. This addition to the plant property for Sensa is already permitted, is already out of the ground and underway, and in its own permitting requirements, it was required to stay more than 25 feet off the property line adjacent to the applicant property. But at the time the applicant property was built, it wasn't built for a recycling center. It was built as a distribution center. So the building activity is merely 12 feet from the property line. That's a problem. What we would submit to you is the proposed special exception will have a substantial adverse impact on sensor technology, not necessarily in those things that are covered by criteria 3, which primarily deal with aesthetic values, matters of keeping the property clean. We have no doubt but that they will do that. But it's the activity that takes place not by sight, but by unseen particulates of the air, dust, vibration qualities, and other things that may not be significant or severe if what you were doing next door were not so sensitive to it. But the fact of the matter, that is one of the very things that you are obliged to take into account in dealing with this special exception, because it is there and it is a recycling center and this is adjacent to it. The criterion regarding impact on public safety or nuisance conditions is unique to this property. The special exception is required in the M2 zone for a reason. It is a unique and unusual business. We know in the M2 zone in Columbia, there's not much that is prohibited. But where you're dealing with a recycling center, the city council had some vision and foresight to add additional criteria by way of the conditions that apply strictly to recycling centers. So there is a necessity to pay attention to what they will be doing and its relative impact on the things around it. Whether the hundreds and hundreds of homes in Eastlake ever saw the signage that there was going to be a special exception is very doubtful, because they're all on Atlas Road and there's no reason for them to be coming and going because it doesn't feed into Eastlake. But there are reasons that these recycling facilities have to maintain particular and peculiar requirements. We submit that one of the things they have to be mindful of, and it's unfortunate for them, but it is a fact, that the activity going on immediately adjacent to them already has to be protected. They are not set up in there already to do this. It's not an ownership situation, it's a leasehold. And to the chairman's question about what happens if, at the end of the activity, if this doesn't work out for Pratt and they leave the property that is subject to the special exception for the lease term, or for within a year, the owner can lease to another recycling facility that may not be quite as community conscious as Pratt may be. They can't guard against that. The condition would be there. There will be this is not a proliferation of the same type of business here. We are cognizant of that. But there are other areas in the city where a recycling center could be located that would not have the problem that we see as a problem for them and for us at this particular location. They could relocate in any M1, M2 district in the city of Columbia with a special exception and comply without question to all of the requirements necessary to be in that location. We suggest that the law provides for, and in this instance it is true, that this location does not warrant the exception circumstances for approval. I come back and say again to you that the Section 17273 needs to be given particular account, because this is a peculiar incompatibility circumstance. It wouldn't be true in every situation, but it is here. this business can't tolerate the other. The proposed special exception is appropriate for its location and compatible with the permitted uses adjacent and the vicinity of others. That criteria in this instance, we suggest to you, is simply not met because it isn't. It's not their fault, but there's not a guarantee that the recycling center can go to any particular site. It has to be a site that's available. It has to be a site in which they can warrant the special exception that they're required to have it in the district. And we suggest that even though this is an M2 district, it still requires conformance and performance in accordance with the requirements of the special exception, and it doesn't work. And insofar as the adverse interest or effect on public interest, we suggest to you that there's a very real prospect, and not just a fear concern, that the business operations of Sensa would be radically affected, not because of deliberate actions on the part of the adjacent landowner, but the unintended consequences. And that is, if the air is infected with dust and pollutants of any sort that escape from the building, it will in fact require additional expenditure to the air handling and scrubbing equipment to the Sensa buildings, which is already overbuilt substantially. It will cause problems within that facility and could, in fact, cause them or become a situation that prevents them from acting altogether. There's a $27-29 million investment already in place. It's going north rapidly. It's expanding. The business is expanding to be in Columbia to take these advanced technologies to other levels in outer space and in consumer products. It's been here, it is here, and it wants to stay here. This is not a risk worth taking. And I hope that you will see in the presentation that the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Lakos, presents to you in a presentation now, that it is a unique and a fully unique circumstance with which we're confronted here today.
Mr. Fuller, we don't normally worry about time, but please.
It's a fairly succinct presentation, but it will be helpful to you, and it's not stuff you normally see.
Yeah, I just wanted to
May I
at
ask
some
a
point we're going
question?
to have to worry about time.
Is a concern that it's a recycling center? It sounds like that a lot of the concern are the vibration and the trucks that are coming down the road. This is a contained recycling center, and I'm just wondering, I mean, what options does the owner of 120 have? It seems like what you focused on are the trucks coming down. It's not what's happening inside that building, which is how they operate. And so my question is it because it's a recycling center, or is it because of the 15, 17 trucks coming in and out?
Well, it's a both and. Excuse me, it's a both and. The criteria, of course, address the traffic and pedestrian concerns, so that is a concern they have. The trucks contribute to the vibration provisions because they are large and they come right in front of the company. They go in next door, but they come right by. Vibration is a concern from the trucks. It's a concern from what happens on the interior of the building. The traffic produced by the trucks is a concern, and then the atmospheric conditions that may be related to the utilization of the building for the recycling center is a very definite concern. As I said a moment ago, Mr. McMeekin, if this were a wholesale grocery distribution operation that Sensa operated, a little bit of dust here and there, a little bit of this here and there would make very little difference. That's not the case.
Is there any concern, isn't there a truck rental facility behind them?
A what?
Isn't there a truck rental facility behind Sensor?
No, I don't think so. It's not adjacent anyway.
I was just looking on Google, there's a Penske, and that may be out of date.
There at the building at the corner of Atlas Road and Atlas Court, adjacent to Sensor on the Atlas Road side, has recently changed hands, but it's a boiler construction company, and it's not a truck rental. And it's serviced off of Atlas Road. The next door neighbor on the other side is this property, the Pratt property. Emmanuel Lakos will give you the information on the,
Real quick, so Sensor's got, and I may be looking at an outdated, 2 facilities over there?
Indeed. We do have two, may I respond?
And do y'all do
Yeah.
the same thing in both facilities?
Excuse me,
We run
I'm
the
sorry.
two-
Could you
Ma'am.
please state your name for the record?
Yes, of course. I'm Emmanuel Lakios. I am the CEO of Sensor Electronics Technology, Inc. Thank you very much for allowing us to provide you some information. I can address all your questions. First, on the Penske truck, there is a more of a residential consumer type trucking facility in the storage facility. It is not exactly adjacent to our property. It is on Atlas Road. And essentially it has minimal traffic. Really, they rent vans and some small cargo trucks. It's not in the same order of 18-wheelers or multi-ton vehicles.
making the SETI activities at 1195 Atlas Road are going to be consolidated into the new expansion
Yep.
of this building on Atlas Court.
And I guess what I'm trying to get at is I just, the building on Atlas backs up to I-77. And maybe I'm just missing the point, but it just seems
No,
like a big-
you're not, but there's quite a bit
But
of
there's a-
actual, there's quite a bit of details that are involved. But there was a point that was made earlier that, and Pratt, that's fantastic, because next time I'm in Home Depot, I'll be able to point to a box and say, wow, that's their product. And I think that's great. They offer a great value. I think you should, I think the committee and the council doesn't know much about SETI. And we are essentially a Silicon Valley company that was born and grown out of the University of South Carolina. And we have been operating here in Columbia, South Carolina for 12 years. The earlier photograph, the aerial shot, it's a little bit of historic. Obviously, from my accent, I'm not from Columbia. I came here because it's a great company and a great environment. That's a 2011 photo. I would like, and I will do this very quickly, is give you just a little bit of a snapshot of what we do. There are a couple of data points that, and quite frankly, we only discovered this about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And we did that inadvertently through a third party who said they noticed the sign on the building next door. We then contacted the building department to try and find out exactly what was transpiring, and we then became aware of this. The only bit of information that we've actually data that is that the acoustic vibrations needs to be, and I have a technical background. SETI is a very technical company. The acoustic vibration is 80 decibel. That's 20 decibel above what some of our equipment can operate with in that environment. So that immediately would be a problem. Your point is very well taken, Ms. McKeenan, is that the Atlas 1195 backs up to the highway. That was one of the reasons why we actually acquired the property on Atlas Court in 2012. And in 2012, we actually built out the facility to put in place the world's largest wafer facility for Deep UV. Some of the equipment that we have does not operate in the back of the building near the highway and has to be located on a special pad because of that vibration. I'm trying to understand this. SETI's business is we manufacture UV LEDs. What's a UV LED? Similar to what you have in your homes where you have white light LED. We operate at a different wavelength. It's called a functional wavelength. It affects material. It kills germs, disinfects water. It is used at certain wavelengths for psoriasis, skin treatment. We're used throughout many different applications. We're partnered with a company, Sol and Sol Biosys. They're a majority shareholder. They are the world's second largest LED manufacturer. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. They're located in Korea, and they've chosen SETI, and made an investment in SETI, and they've chosen South Carolina and Columbia to put this facility in place. We have been involved in national security since 2003. We've done programs with the Army, Navy, Navy SEALs. We have our devices are in the space station for use in disinfection. We have some of the world's highest technology semiconductor processes located on that 110 Atlas Court. Some of our devices used again for home defense. These are, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but we make the components that enable these products to actually function. We've actually provided a copy of this presentation. We're in the space station. We sold several units, $50,000 a piece to the space station. We're in satellites. We now, to be commercially viable, just as the LED business went through transformation from a very expensive to a very inexpensive technology, we're also taking that military and high-tech technology, and we're bringing it home to the consumer to improve the quality of life. This is an example of, over the next several years, you will find UV LEDs in your refrigerator, you'll find them in your stove, you'll find growth drawers for herbs under your countertop, you'll find surface disinfection devices, all based on the technology that we have in 110 Atlas Court. Deodorization of a refrigerator, I think we all go through that. We put a fish in there, we don't properly wrap it. Our devices actually clean that air. And it's done through a very sophisticated light process where the photons actually break down the actual bacteria that's causing the smell. Disinfection of water. We did programs with ONR. Soon, every one of your Keurigs will have a blue little light in it that'll be a UV light that'll kill the germs in your stagnant water. Any water that's stagnant has a possibility of generating germs. There was an earlier slide, and I welcome you to look at the presentation, where we did some work with DARPA, which is the defense industry funding source, where we actually develop some anthrax detection capability. We can preserve strawberries, extend the lifetime by 2 weeks. That's a big impact to whether it's Walmart or any other produce provider. We make sensors for dialysis equipment. We make, we said earlier, psoriasis skin treatment. A little bit of an aerial shot here, and I'm not sure exactly which. Oops, press all the buttons. Oops, that's not the button I want to press. There, okay. I'm not going to be able to speak to it, but on the left-hand side, you see near the highway, you see 1110 Atlas Road. We lease that space. That is a hodgepodge. We can no longer expand or conduct our business because our technology has gotten more sensitive. We acquired 110 Atlas. This is actually possibly about 2 years old. We have acquired 110 Atlas for the specific purpose of expanding our facility. We have 8,000 square feet of clean room space. What's clean room space? In this room, we would think that the air is pretty clean in here. There are 8 million particles of a certain size that are in a cubic meter of space. 8 million particles. Our clean room, there are 8,000 particles. Our clean rooms are 1,000 times cleaner than this room is right now. So when we talk about a box smelling like diapers or kitty litter, that's good to know, because I'd hate my pizza to smell like kitty litter, but this is a different order of magnitude of a problem. When we talk about vibration and having to wear earmuffs, we're at a whole different level of issue here. We're at an issue where even 80 decibels is over the limit for our process equipment. And that's all documented as we were listening to the previous, and we've received no information. That's just what we heard today. This is what we look like inside those walls. We've invested $25 million into 110 Atlas Road by itself. That's in dirt, brick and mortar, and in all the support equipment and our process equipment. On the upper left-hand corner, we have two pieces of equipment which we bought from Nitec, which was a competing company here in Columbia, South Carolina, also spawned out of the university. We bought those assets on October 31st for $9 million to install in this facility. So I'm really happy that Pratt has invested $450 million throughout the United States. We've invested $25 million to date on that piece of property. The equipment on your lower left-hand, that equipment will not be usable at 80 decibels. So let's look at a little bit of what a more recent shot is going to be of the site. We have some photographs on the right-hand side. The upper one shows the property line. It's the tree. The tree is literally on, I believe, it's on the property line towards the old Shaw facility. Our best guess from a tape measure, it's 11 feet from our building. We're building, then on the upper left-hand side, you see where Mashburn is building us a great building. You see all the construction in those photographs ongoing right now. I can't imagine somebody driving by and not noticing 12 different pieces of heavy machinery moving around dirt, a trailer out front from Mashburn, the sign that says Mashburn, to be able to determine that putting a facility 11 feet from our property line, that is going to be creating even 80 decibels, and I don't know if that's 80 decibels on a good day or a bad day. I can't afford to lose production in that site. This is just a similar aerial shot. I think it's a little bit more recent than the 2011. We now have vehicles on the 110 Atlas Court, but you can see the close proximity of the building. All of the facilities, and let me say all, the facilities that I'm aware of in there are distribution. Across the street, there's a distribution, and we have truck traffic, and they're very respectful. So we know that neighbor. We don't have an issue with normal 18-wheel trucks. We have issues potentially with other vehicles, and we don't even know what kind of vehicles are going to be going down that road. We don't know what vehicles now. We just became aware that we're actually going to be pulling around the back, which brings those vehicles very close to our building. So, again, I appreciate the time that you've given us and Bobby Fuller's support here. So we bring a unique value to Columbia, South Carolina. We are a Silicon Valley semiconductor device manufacturer, and we chose Columbia, South Carolina. We chose to make a substantial investment. We funded research at the university. Solviosys, which is our majority shareholder, continues to fund research there. We enable national security. We provide medical solutions, and we improve the quality of life in everybody's home on a very high-tech level. We bring high-tech jobs into South Carolina. We have 68 employees. By the end of this year, we'll have 74 employees. And we intend to hire close to 30 employees over the next 2-3 years. So we create high-tech jobs. We've invested $25 million just in 110 Atlas Court year to date. This year we'll be investing another $3 million brick and mortar and $1 million of equipment. That's $4 million we're putting there that, quite frankly, we don't want to be put at jeopardy. So why are we here today? Our ability to operate. From what I heard today, 80 decibels is a problem for us. When I did this presentation, I didn't know any real facts at all. All I knew is what I would assume would happen. I am a mechanical engineer by trade, so there are certain things I understand. And that's going to be threatened, our business will be threatened by a neighbor that's proposing to come in on a 7-year lease, can abandon the site, that's folding and baling, a necessity, cardboard boxes, airborne contaminants. Quite frankly, I don't know how you're going to contain all of the dust internally. You have to vent the air in the building. There's air conditioning, there's ventilation. Those doors open up. To achieve the 8 million particles per square meter to 8,000 square meters, we cycle that air 250 times through very, very fine HEPA filters. HEPA filters, very similar to what you have. Actually, it's an order of magnitude cleaner than what you have in your car, because some cars have HEPA filters now. Some vacuum cleaners have HEPA filters. Those will clog up. That's going to impose a problem for us from a maintenance perspective, and it'll also cause a problem for if those particles make it through those filters and contaminate our wafers. One particle will kill a device. True, our wafers are 2-inch in diameter, and there are 3,000 devices on there. But if you do the math very quickly, it doesn't take much to lose an entire wafer, and those wafers cost thousands of dollars. So for us, the effect of taking a very quick decision without any data really provided to us, and quite frankly, we found out about this through hearsay, puts a company that's invested, and a foreign entity as well, who's invested a tremendous amount of money into SETI to do business in Columbia, South Carolina, to become the world leaders in UV technology. We're putting that at risk to put in a 7-year lease cardboard baling facility. Oh, one of the things is we show a lot of pictures. We will, for a moment, I forgot Max is our CTO for the group. We brought just to show you what the devices actually look like. We just brought some of these. Some of these sell for these little trinkets sell for $12,500. The one that went on, that was there, those there can go from $30,000 to over $1,000 depending on the process performance. And what comes out of that is very specialized light. Typically, you can't see it with the eye because it's not in the visible spectrum. But what it can do is it can kill germs. It breaks up the DNA bond. So we've looked at, we have programs ongoing and looking at potentially wounds and disinfecting wounds in the battlefield. This is all what I would term bleeding edge technology. And I'm pleased to say we are in Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay, I want to
Sorry.
push a little time. No, I do want to indicate a difficulty, at least I'm personally am having, and you referred to this toward the end of your comments, which were all very helpful, thank you very much, about lacking of data. From your presentation, I've gotten a very good idea of what you do and how important it is and the potential for problems, but I stress potential. Mm-hmm. I've gotten a sense of what they do and their view that this potential will not be realized, but again, it's the data gap as to which way will the potential go. And things, for example, my understanding, and again, I want to have the applicant come up again, perhaps. When he said 80 decibels, that was within the building, was my understanding, so that then I'm in this data gap. Well, what does it mean outside the building? You say, well, sometimes the doors are open, but then it goes in a different direction. And that makes it very hard, since we're supposed to have a record to support what we do, a factual record. We have this gap. Mr. Fuller's presentation, we would start off with ifs, and then we would assume the if had been shown, and then the argument would proceed, but we don't, but that's why yours was very helpful in terms of precisely your filters and all that. Does anyone else have questions?
Yeah. My question is, the proposed property for the applicant is well over 37,000 square feet, used as a distribution center at some point. Let's say if someone does use it as a distribution center, let's say there's tractor trailers going into there, out of there every day. What would that situation pose differently from what the applicant is proposing that would cause you to do something different internally?
The traffic we have trucks that go up and down. We have a moving storage company across the street, and we have little disturbance from a vibration perspective from that traffic. Obviously, if it was a highway, if we opened it up to a highway, and because vibration is also a function of speed, because it's actually the wavelength, the frequency. So to answer your question, I can't imagine that there would be enough foot truck. You would be backing up the roads if that was the case, and you would have a traffic management issue more so than a vibration issue. The question is we're not clear what trucks will be coming in. Are they distribution trucks, which are closed 18-wheel trailers, or are they dump trucks? Those are two different animals from both a maintenance, a care and feeding, and a vibration perspective. But again, to answer your question, we wouldn't have that building when we bought the property. When we built on, that was a distribution. That was short distribution. We don't have an issue associated with a distribution center. We have an issue associated with all the good intent and promises. We know what our equipment can actually handle: 65, 55 decibels. Those are just two examples of our equipment. We know that our filtration devices can get fouled up. But they don't get fouled up today because we don't have any generation in a nearby facility. A distribution house wouldn't do that.
I add a few details. My name is Max Shataloff, and I'm Senior Director at SAT. And just besides requirements to the acoustic noise and the air filtration, we also have the requirements for certain equipment on vibration. And some of the machines, they need to operate at vibration level of about 1 micron per second, 1 micrometer per second. It's a fraction of an inch. And we couldn't install this equipment at 1195 facility because of proximity to the highway. So that's why we have already the equipment is installed on the vibration insulation pads, but this is very specific and sensitive equipment that we have at 110 and we plan on expanding.
So with the proper information, we can clearly assert with data. Data speaks. We all have technical background, so data is always important in any decision process. But if we were provided data which is both indoor and outdoor, I'm not sure how that would occur because all buildings are different. The subsequent issue I had is that the building is 11 feet from the property line. That means that the distance between my manufacturing site and that's going to be the buffer. The dirt's going to be the buffer. My pad is going to be the buffer. We didn't design the pad to be able to have low levels of vibration. So I answered.
I'm curious then, with the building being an existing building, whether it's 11 or 12 feet from the property line, I'm sure there are some conditions or requirements or thought that went into making that type of investment, that with the building adjacent being that close, that could negatively affect the operation. Mm-hmm. What's being done on your end internally to kind of control the vibration, since you obviously can't control it outside? The building is done and already there.
Sure, that's actually a great question. First, we initially look at the use case of the. I wouldn't imagine that a fireworks manufacturer is going to build in that building, or that it was going to become a social club or something of that sort. So I can't guess all of the applications, nor would I've ever guessed that a distribution building from Shaw was going to become a recycling facility. So that's the first part of your answer to your first part of your question. The second part of the question is, what do we do is, our slabs are designed such that it will absorb most of road traffic type vibrations. It's not seismic, so if we have an earthquake here, I think we're all in the same boat. So it's not designed for that. We don't have isolation pads for all of our apparatus and our equipment. For certain equipment, we do. The equipment that is prone to vibration from, let's say, road traffic. What you do is you isolate that. You have a different pad, and you have then the rubberized sealant around that, for loss of any other words. So that's commonly used in our industry. So we do take precautions for vibration. Even during the building, we have to shut down part of our operations when we were doing the leveling on the dirt. We could see what's called an atomic force microscope. It measures atoms. It bounced around, and that was, you barely could feel the vibration, but that was more than, even with the isolation, more than that instrument could function under. And here, a lot of things are unknown, and I'm sure there's a lot of data, but how do you get accurate data? And if you allow this to proceed forward, we're putting a lot of faith into, and I can give you manuals of all the equipment we have. The OEM manufacturer specifies for a certain installation what the vibration needs to be. I can give you, my team can provide all the data that you need. We can provide the HEPA filtration, what the pre-air needs to be, the makeup air. We have a lot of, we're a semiconductor house. So we could provide all that information to help make an intelligent decision on a go-forward basis. My concern is that if the approval's done and then we find out that the vibration really sometimes is 80, but sometimes it's 95, 100. Well, that shuts down my manufacturing line. And quite frankly, we've been there we've been on that site since 2012. And I can't imagine anybody missed all the bulldozers and the Mashburn sign in the trailer that's out front.
Excuse me, you testified for a moment, but could you give your name for the record?
Yes, I didn't give him my name. My name is Max Shataloff, and I'm Senior Director at SET.
Right, I just want to make sure we get, thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Before we hear some response from the applicant, is there anyone else here today who'd like to speak for or against the application? Would you like to have a short response?
Yes, sir.
I emphasize short, please.
I'm going to make it real short. We're a good steward. When I turned in the application, ground had not even been broken on the site. That was the first time I had seen the location, so we were unaware of any type of construction. We're giving you facts based on plants. I've got 32 years' experience, both in sales with Pratt. I've been with Pratt for 20 years, and both setting up our plants. We've got 3 plants in South Carolina now. We got 1 in Columbia, 1 in Rock Hill, 1 in Greenville, South Carolina. We've been here for years. We appreciate your state. We hope we get consideration in this, and we will abide by all rules set down. Thank you.
Just a last couple comments, because back in the 80s, there was reference to being a waste paper plant. We're a recycling plant. We're not a waste paper plant. That's a connotation of trash, and we are not trash. We're recovering this to make a product with it. It is a recycled plant. Lease requirements on the building require that the building is put back into the same shape that we take it, so we would not be leaving it and leasing it for someone else. We wouldn't do that. As far as putting a competition in business, we have been in this area for years now, and we know that we want to be a part of the community and have a permanent place. We were in a sublease place before. And the decibel reading is inside a insulated building, and the vibration. Most of the property is unpaved that the trucks will be coming in on. They will be backing into a paved area. So I don't see the transference of vibration by the trucks. And I think that it might be that no matter what goes in that building or what is developed on that property in that industrial park, there'll be some opposition to the trucks. Our trucks will not be queuing up on the street. They will be coming into the property. We will not be shipping enough to have queuing, and we have 9 unloading or docks to load that we can move material, move the trucks in and out. All the trucks coming in, there won't be any dump trucks coming in. There will be no personal vehicles coming in. It will be front-end loaders or mainly front-end loaders. Some roll-off containers that are enclosed. We don't pull things that are open.
So none of the trailers are open? These are
No,
all
sir.
closed?
They're all
There's a
closed
reference
trailers,
to it.
53-foot closed trailers. You can't transport paper in an open-top trailer. You would just, you can on corrugated. You see the corrugated trucks, but and we don't operate the corrugated flatbed trucks out of this plant.
What about the delivery of material? What sort of trucks are those?
It will be front-end loaders.
Could you be more precise about what that means?
Well,
Could you describe?
you normally see trucks that come in and pick up a 8-yard bin and dump it over top. It comes in as compacted loads. It comes in and will pull into the plant and push it out the back.
Will
might-
these be
Okay.
open trucks?
No, sir. They're enclosed.
So not unlike and I hesitate to use this analogy, but like when somebody comes to dump a,
Right, exactly. That's what we,
Please, I'm not as far along as he is in
Process
understanding.
manager for the company. A front-end
But
loader-
remember, and we're making a record that somebody's going to have to read and understand
sir.
what you're
Right.
describing.
Front loader truck is basically your truck that you see empty in dumpsters at businesses, have the forks on front, it dumps it, as it sets it down, a top closes over that compartment.
Okay.
The material is compressed in the back of the truck and is fully enclosed.
so by the
Can it-
time
when-
it comes to you, it's enclosed.
It's completely enclosed.
But it has to be outside the truck when it's unloaded at some point.
well, the truck backs up, the rear of the truck opens up, and that's the reason.
But that's
why we-
off-site.
Now, is that going to be unloaded onto a
Inside.
dock or
No,
inside?
inside. That's
So the
reason-
loading, so the unloading of the delivery happens inside the building.
Correct.
What about the loading of the bigger trucks?
Well, the trucks are backed up to a loading dock, and you might have this much space between putting bales in, but it's going to be baled material.
And the loading dock is on
All the
it's on
open
the,
doors,
what I think of as the side of the side of the building, that if you keep going, you get to the residential area. Is that where the loading dock is?
Yes, that's correct. And each dock has its own seal around it. It's a rubber cushion seal, so as the trailer backs up against it, it creates the seal. So there's minimal paper fall that would go out, but as part of our requirements, we're
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense. The difficulty, as I said, in terms of the opponents, is I have a data vacuum. I don't know how much dust and vibration and detail you will be producing, and you've not had reason to go out and measure it 20, 30 feet away. And I'm trying to get a sense of, in this,
the only-
dealing with a risk, how much risk as best I can.
Yeah, we were trying to limit our presentation to 10 minutes as required. so-
Right.
The only experience that I have is that we have, in a past position, I did measure the air quality within the plant. We did not go outside the plant.
Right.
We were more concerned because everything was confined within the plant, and we met OSHA guidelines for air quality.
And I'm assuming that would be much less stringent than the opposition.
Probably.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, okay. Does anyone else have questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fuller, would you like 2 minutes?
I'm not going to take the full 2 minutes, but I would say that I think that this is a highly unusual circumstance. It invariably sort of pits two producers of product and generators of business. It is unfortunate that the situation arises, but I do think that the equities would flow in the circumstance of the operator who is already in place with a fully permitted use in the district, with an expansion to that facility to do the same thing that requires no further permitting, no special exception, and nothing else to continue. That's already all been met, versus an applicant for special exception, required to show qualification under the 8 criteria and the 6 conditions for its type of business. It's qualifying its business, and we are trying to maintain the business that's already been qualified, permitted, and put in place.
2 questions. Well, one question, one request. So had they been there from 2012, chances are, I don't know how you pronounce, I can't recall how to pronounce the acronym, SETI?
SETI.
They wouldn't have chosen that site because it wouldn't be compatible with what their needs would be.
Well, I think I'm correct when I say the Shaw building may have been operating as a distribution center in 2012. It may have already been completed with that operation. The building was certainly built for a distribution center, and it was completed and it was there.
Can you read me, or Mr. Hubbard might have it more readily at his fingertips, but that you cited a reference in the ordinance that had to do with one business, and forgive me for I'm trying to.
Yes, sir, I can do that.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
read that for me, please? I just don't happen to have.
I think
You're up to the compatibility section?
Right.
it's number 7 on the
Yes.
list. The proposed special exception is appropriate for its location and compatible with permitted uses adjacent to and in the vicinity of the property. Is that the language?
I think. So that was council trying to make certain that there were, if you could just make that point again, Bobby, that you made earlier. I'm just trying to
I'm looking for
there was something else that wasn't in the criteria, but it was another
it's,
piece of the
this is the
ordinance.
This is the provision found directly in section 17273. It is a listing of 6 conditions with which a recycling center must satisfy to locate. And incidentally, one of them requires a 25-foot setback, but the building is already there. This is the language that I was emphasizing. The recycling center shall comply with any other requirements determined by the Board of Zoning Appeals to be essential for safeguarding the public health and safety and for protecting adjacent areas and uses. Adjacent areas and uses. My position in this, in behalf of SETI,
They had their use first.
is that they are, in fact, entitled to a protection of use.
Were there any other questions? Is there no one, to make sure no one else is here to speak for and against this? We will close testimony and have a board discussion. Mr. Cook, I have a question. In the requirements in 17273, number 3 says the side yard setback, et cetera, shall be at least 25 feet.
For residential or office use?
Right. So this is neither residential nor office. That doesn't apply.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that
Yes, that's correct.
I've got
It does
that correct.
not apply.
Thank you. Any,
Mr. Chairman, we don't necessarily agree agree that that does not apply. Yeah, there are offices in that building, but it is, I understand Mr. Cook's position on the item.
Okay, comments, motions, suggestions from the board?
Mr. Cook, the building in question, as it's built now, it does meet the setback requirements for that zoning, right?
Correct. In the heavy industrial zone district, your side yard setbacks would be 0 in essence. You know, potentially, based on the adjacency of the use, a landscape buffer may or may not be required, but this probably would not be the case with this one.
Been torn about this, listening to both sides, but I think the hook that's getting me is Mr. Fuller's reference to that provision. I mean, I think that, I don't know that I necessarily, well, I don't have to get into the equality of it, it's there, but, so that's where I am. Would be to deny.
You think we should, do you want to make a motion?
I can, I mean, is there any more board discussion?
I don't know. Well, we can discuss the motion. We don't have to.
Give me that reference.
We can do it
again.
before, right?
I don't mind. What's that reference again with that 17 dash?
273.
17-273, subsection 6.
Any more board discussion?
Yeah, you brought up a good point. I'm kind of torn between that as well.
What were you saying, Calhoun? I didn't hear what you were
I was
saying.
just saying that I've been back and forth on this one, but I guess, Mr. Hubbard, you can remind me who was the strict constitutionalist, Madison or, but I mean, I think the hook for me is what Mr. Fuller brought up, and with that responsibility of, you know, subsequent businesses coming in, that they have to be sensitive to who's there before them.
Well, that's how I interpreted number 7 on the standard criteria, which says
Compatibility, right.
compatibility with permitted uses adjacent to and in the vicinity of the property.
Right.
The difficulty I'm having is back to the risk versus certainty as to what's going to happen. Is it compatible? Is it not compatible? And we have 2 very good business uses.
Well, again, that's where I'm torn. I mean, on the front side, for me, you've got a business that's been around, and it's got a track record, and you've got, you know, the 2 gentlemen presenting who've got a track record in that industry. And it seems like to me you're bringing in material in a closed environment. You're going to back it up. It almost makes me think of like when you get on a plane and they've got that shroud around you, that they're going to, you know, it's pretty contained. And I don't think that just 7 would push me towards the side of denial, but it's what, again, it's what, I mean, you know, what's compatible, what's not.
So what is it that you're finding persuasive?
I guess they're very similar, but
The cover page of our materials.
But I mean, you could take the other side of it. I mean, you know, why do you put something so sensitive in an area that's off Atlas Road where you got a bunch of trucks coming and going, and you've got your previous facility that backed up to I-77? I mean, that's what I'm saying. I see both sides of it. And, you know, that sticks in my craw a little bit. What about the owner of the building at 120? You know, I mean, how do we not know that SETI won't oppose? I mean, they're going to dictate who goes in that building. Who's to say moving forward that it's not a recycling business, but it brings in more trucks in the recycling business? And
Unfortunately, the who to say is us.
I know.
So,
Unless they don't have to come to zoning, unless they don't need a special exception.
Which it could happen.
Anyone else want to try a motion? I gather you're declining my,
I can make a motion.
okay.
Are we done with board discussion?
For the moment, I guess. Is there any other discussion point? Okay.
I'll make a motion to deny the special exception for 120 Atlas Court, TMS 16306-07-06, in that this proposed use is not compatible for its location, and particularly with the adjacent business at 110 Atlas Road, and I'd also reference the 17-273 subsection 6.
Do I hear a second?
Repeat the motion, read your motion again, Calhoun, I'm sorry.
Make a motion to deny the special exception in that this use, the proposed use, is not compatible in this location. So, under number 7 of the special exception. And then again, I would reference 17-273 subsection 6, and that this is particularly not compatible with the facility that's located adjacent to it. So it's not so much the area, it's the vicinity. It's that it's right next door to. It's not compatible given that the problems that it creates for the property owner next door.
So, I mean, we're saying that it's not compatible with the specific use of the neighbor as opposed to the zoning of M2. Is that right?
What I'm saying is that it fails, that a recycling plant is not compatible under number 7 of the criteria of the special exception, as well as 17-273.
I think, to be more precise, the language in 7 is the permitted uses, and you seem to be focusing on the actual use, but it is within the permitted, if that
Sure.
is some comfort. Do we have a second?
Well, I just have a quick question. I can understand you say the permitted use, but is there a list of businesses that we're going to deny and we can possibly approve? We can't. Is there anything is there a list of permitted business that we can consider, or that we think highly favorable of, or don't think highly favorable of? I understand what you're saying, Calhoun, because I was torn between.
Well, I'm talking about this particular one.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
if another one came in front of us, that we'd have to judge that on its merits, but I'm talking about the one in front of us, not the one that may or may not come in front of us.
Okay.
We're talking about what's being presented today.
I'd like to move this down the road. I'll second the motion. I think in trying to wrestle with it, the thing that bothers me is that, again, we truly don't know, and it's almost like we have to decide, well, which one should be there between these two uses.
Well, you had some data. You've had the opposition saying that the decibel level that was referenced by the applicant wasn't acceptable. So there is data. It's not.
Well, but that was within the building, and his, obviously it wasn't within his building or even outside. I think in order to have some tiebreaker in my mind, I'm to the point of, it's one of those things, all we have is guesses to some extent, which we don't like to have to make a decision on that. But we do know that there is a potential, there seems to be a real potential based on the testimony of the opposition, of serious downside consequences that are both serious, severe, and could perhaps very much affect the nature of that operation. On the other hand, the applicant doesn't have the huge investment that the opposition does. And I think, as nearly as I can come up with a way to resolve how to handle the risk, is that the downside risk of our guessing wrong and approving it is perhaps more than I want to approve.
Well, and I don't know if this gives you any more comfort, but there are times when I see things that come before us where you've got the adjacent neighbor where I can't make a decision based on this, but it wouldn't suit me. You know, somebody wants to stick a carport up, and it, you know, wouldn't suit me if I owned the adjacent property, and people don't come and protest it. So people get permission to do those kinds of things. And I'm not looking at so much the investment that I'm going to get at SETI. But, you know, these are people that are very precise, engineer. If it didn't matter, it didn't matter. I don't think that they were, I don't think that they're just going to come to say this doesn't suit us because it doesn't suit us. We just want that building beside us to sit empty. I think that they see a real threat to how they do business, and that's why they're here opposing it.
And partly what I'm agreeing with you in saying, I think given the way this process works, by that I mean you don't have discovery like a trial, you don't have
Right.
expert witnesses in the normal manner. They've perhaps done the best they could to say from their point of view, and they have some evidence to back it up. This is a very serious risk and threat to their business. We're having a nice conversation, but anyone else?
Well, I made a motion and you seconded it. Do you
I
want to?
second it, yes. That's what I want to see if any other members of the board have anything to say.
Other than, this is probably one of the most unique adjacent property conflicts we've had. And I'm torn, but I'm reading what Calhoun's motion was based on, and it's kind of hard to go against that because it's written there. And I would have probably liked to have had more information concerning how the applicant would control the atmosphere inside to base my decision on, but we don't.
And I must admit, I definitely understand what Calhoun was speaking of and the way that the gentleman brought the actually evidence. You know, this is highly sensitive information material, so I can, you know, just one little thing can mess up, you know, something really big. So I think I know how I want to vote.
Okay, shall we take a vote? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion to deny carries. We're going to take about a 5-minute break. Thank you very much. Board of Zoning Appeals is back. The meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals is back in session. Mr. Cook, next case.
Thanks, sir. Next case is 16-007 variance, 948 and 950 Hardin Street, tax map number 11405, 0701, and 25. A variance to the parking requirements for a mixed-use development. Basically, what we have here is an existing building. There are two buildings, both approximately 2,660 square feet on the end cap of a commercial strip that's existing, basically 936 and 950 Hardin Street. It's the property is really right across from the Food Lion Shopping Center there on Hardin Street. Because of the existing conditions that currently exist, no off-street parking no off-street parking is currently available. The applicant proposes to renovate the existing building and potentially construct a second-story addition with a patio based on the submitted documents. Up to 35 parking spaces would be required, while the applicant is proposing to provide 0 instead. Generally speaking, what we're looking at, the proposed construction of the second story would be approximately 2,700 square feet, with the potential for a 2,600 square foot rooftop patio. In addition, the applicant is here and can answer any questions specifically about the proposed future plans. But we're looking for a variance to the parking requirements for a mixed-use development, which generally you're looking at 3.3 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area, which is required for a mixed-use development. Again, 35 spaces would be required. The applicant is proposing to provide 0. The applicant can answer any questions.
I'm not sure it's still morning, but good morning if it is. Scott Lambert, Lambert Architecture and Construction Services. Appreciate the opportunity to present the project to you today and the proposed parking variance. As stated, it's an existing building with a 0 lot line. There is no property to build parking on currently, and it is a vacant project that frankly needs to be renovated, and the concept being continued to invigorate that part of Hardin Street and contributing to 5 Points. As in the presentation, there's an option for that second floor that the developer wants us to explore, which is actually contiguous to a project you can see in the rendering that was before you in January of this year, that also is proposing this second floor that you approved. But the idea being tying that part of that development together aesthetically. Again, the vitalization of this project, we understand parking would be something that the developers would seek out a solution, and I think they've begun doing that at this point. But at this point, to get the project, a catalyst to kick it off, we're requesting the 0 parking variance.
Could you, in your application, there's a list of criteria for a variance. Could you run through those with me and tell me why you think they're satisfied?
Sure. As mentioned, the building was built in 1949 as a 0 lot line building. There's never been any parking on the site. Obviously, parking in 5 Points, many of the buildings don't have parking. You know, they're just buildings without. And I think most of the businesses seek opportunities to explore that as they go in. Obviously, the issue is with no parking variance, you could never even use the building, which is not supportive of what we're trying to do in 5 Points. So obviously, to get a business license or certificate of occupancy, we need the variance.
So it would prohibit or unreasonably restrict the use of the property to deny it?
Yes, correct.
Yes, okay,
Correct.
thank you. Good, item number 4.
And again, the variance will facilitate the project to really kick off and get going from design and really getting tenants and really start the project moving forward.
So it would not be of substantial detriment to the public interest or the character. Indeed, it would improve it. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. It's obviously an abandoned building now, and it actually looks probably better from the outside than it is on the inside. It needs to be renovated. It needs to start happening soon. I mean, it's important for us to save these buildings in that area, and it needs
Since
to
you have no parking and no reasonable way to have parking, this is the minimum necessary?
That's correct.
And I think this is within the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance.
Yes, it's a mixed use. The proposed use obviously is mixed use.
Does anyone else have questions of the applicant?
No.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak in favor or in opposition to this request for a variance? Mr. Cook,
Yes, thank you. Just for the record, Mr. McMeekin left before the beginning of this meeting, so we do have a quorum with 4 people. I just wanted to state that Mr. McMeekin is no longer with us. Mr. McMeekin left before the last meeting. I just wanted, for the record, state that he's not here for this case, since we still have a quorum now.
we still have a quorum.
Correct, yes.
Yes, we have 4, we have a quorum. One of our members thought the cases might not take 2 hours each. Hopefully they won't. Do I hear a motion? Discussion?
No real discussion. I think all of us are very aware of the unique parking challenges in 5 Points.
I move to approve the request for variance. The extraordinary and exceptional conditions have been shown by the testimony, as well as how they do not generally apply. In addition, the testimony is, it's been pointed out, our knowledge of 5 Points over the course of hearing many cases there is that denial would prohibit or unreasonably restrict the use of the property. It would, rather than detriment of the character of the neighborhood, it will improve it and be a step forward. It is the minimum necessary, and it's consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance.
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Good luck.
Next case is 16-008, special exception, 3207 Piedmont Avenue, tax map 11-508, 17 and 10 and 11. Special exception to reestablish a religious organization. Again, this is a special exception to build a religious organization that was previously on the site, damaged by fire, and ultimately demolished. The previous building that was demolished was less than 1,000 square feet in area. The applicant proposes to construct a building of approximately the same size according to the submitting plans. The new building would be approximately 988 square feet. Again, this is a new project, so it must meet parking, landscaping, and buffer yard requirements, and it is on a parcel that is zoned RS3, single-family residential. The applicant is here, can answer any questions.
Would you state your name for the record, please?
Bishop J.H. Callahan. I'm trying to get the church rebuilt. We had a fire in the church. The church been there since 1941. And we had a fire, and the smoke and all the damage was so bad that the church had to come down. So what happened is we are trying to put the church back up. It's been in community there since 1941. People like Officer Truesdale, he came through there. There's Officer Thomas, he came through that church, and a lot of other young people. This is a bad neighborhood. That it was there before they zoned it for a residential back in 1941 when the church was built. So I'm asking y'all to let us keep the church in the community.
Okay. Mr. Callahan, I'm going to ask you some questions.
Yes, sir.
Okay. and I'll try to help you answer them as we go along.
Yes, sir.
These are these are the questions we have to examine to determine whether or not to grant the special exception that you need to build the building again. Is there any reason to think that this will have a substantial adverse impact on traffic or public safety?
No, I don't think there'd be no problem there.
No problems with those, good.
No, sir.
Do you think it'll have any adverse impact on the people around you in terms of things like noise, light?
No, so that hasn't been a problem at all. People in the neighborhood comes out.
Okay. Do you think it will be negative in terms of how it looks and the aesthetics of the area?
No, I don't think it will be. We getting the design, the decent the way it's gonna look.
What about, again, public safety or nuisance or things people don't
It
want?
won't be a nuisance to anyone. So far, we've been there all these years, and then
I'm supposed to ask you, and I will, if there's going to be a concentration, but I'm having trouble having a concentration of churches might be a problem. But do you think that there's going to be a concentration of similar uses that would not be good for the city?
there won't be no kind of problem there.
No problems, okay. Do you think it's consistent with the character of the neighborhood where you're in?
I think it's a good thing for the neighborhood.
It fit right in with the neighborhood, you think? Yes. And it's, okay. And so you think it'd be in the public interest to
Yes.
grant the exception?
Yes, sir, I do.
Does anyone else have any questions?
No, sir.
No.
I think you understand that even though we might approve the request in front of us today, you're still going to have to meet requirements about parking and landscaping and side yards and all that sort of thing.
Yes, sir.
You do understand there will be other requirements?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you will satisfy those other requirements?
Yes, sir. I was satisfied that
Right.
I already draw it up.
Any other questions?
Question for staff. Is this one before us because it was demolished or because of the time frame it wasn't existing there? Or both?
It's basically because they're constructing a new facility that's been taken, the old one was taken away. So they're establishing it as such as a new facility, a different facility in essence.
So I imagine it was probably non-compliant. Now it's been there since 1940s.
Certainly it was.
Bringing everything into.
Yes, correct.
Are there any other questions of the applicant or of staff? Thank you, Mr. Callahan.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against this request? Seeing no indication that anyone else wants to speak concerning this issue, we're going to close the taking of evidence and proceed to deliberation. Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I motion to approve this special exception to reestablish a religious organization.
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Excuse the interruption. I may have missed it when there's some dialogue around me, but did we open up for anybody that was opposed or for?
Yeah.
I thought it
Yeah,
asked.
he did.
Okay, someone was talking. I missed him.
I frequently need help, so don't feel bad. Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Hold on. I think she's against.
Did someone want to speak?
Yes, I just have
Okay. Could you state your name for the record?
I'm Regina Williams. I'm president of the Booker Washington Heights Neighborhood Association.
Yes.
And my question is, before the church was set on fire a few months ago, it was empty. And it was a nuisance in the neighborhood because people were sleeping in there. So I'm wondering if you've contacted people in the neighborhood, or what, and there were very few people attending the church, so what are your plans for the revitalization of the church and for the participation in the community?
Just a moment. So let me get this straight. You would like him to address this question? Is that correct?
To
So-
give
well,
you
well,
all
we-
some
but we have
insight.
to take turns with the microphone. So if you could let him step to the microphone
Yes,
and answer
okay.
your question. Thank you.
Okay. First thing, the church have not been empty.
Please speak to the microphone.
Okay, the church has not been empty. And far as people living in the church, no. There's a young person that was living on the outside of the church. And I had to get the police to move them from the church. Now, for us, we have service on Sunday morning, we have service on Sunday afternoon, so we don't be at the church late in the night like a lot of churches. Okay, now this lady, I do not know who she is, don't know whether she's even in the community. You understand? I never seen her even come in the church. So nobody sleeps on the outside of the church. And I've been with this church since 1972, and I've never seen it before.
So to summarize, it will be used for church
It will be
services.
used for church.
And no one will be sleeping in it.
No one will be sleeping in the church.
Thank you. Did you have another question, or was it?
No, I don't. We just invite you, Pastor Callahan, to become a part. We have a ministerial alliance with Bible Way on Piedmont, St. John Baptist, and the church, the CME Church, Cleves Memorial. So we happily invite you to become a part of our ministerial alliance. And I'll get your information before you leave. And we welcome you to rebuild with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak for or against the request? Again, I don't see anyone interested, so we're going to close testimony again. We have a motion on the floor, is that correct? Was the motion seconded?
I second it.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. I'd like to speak in support of it. As the testimony has shown, the 8 specific criteria for a special exception have all been satisfied, so I support the motion. Is there anyone else who wants to make comment?
I think that's a very I think it's a very good thing to be in that community. I graduated from Benedict, and I think it'll enlighten the community. It'll jumpstart it, so to speak. So I think that's great.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No opposed, 4 in favor.
Next case, 16009 variance, 2013 Green Street, tax map 114050913, variance to the parking requirements to expand a restaurant. The applicant is requesting again a variance to the parking requirements. The existing Publico restaurant is approximately 3,440 square feet. The addition is in the rear of the property. It's a deck. It looks to be approximately 700 square feet, which would require additional 5 parking spaces to be provided, whereas 0 is proposed. There is a parking lot existing, as you can see. Andrew's pointing out the existing parking lot to the rear that is obviously on their property and used for their customers, which is unique for that particular area in many instances, as we've seen. The applicant is here and can answer any questions.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you very much. My name's Stan Panos, and actually, our counsel, Breon Walker, is going to speak on our behalf. Okay, sir? And I'll be available for questions myself, of course, but Breon, Ms. Walker.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Breon Walker. I'm with the law firm of Gallivan, White, and Boyd here in Columbia, and I represent All In Restaurant Group doing business as Publico Kitchen and Tap. You already met Stan Panos, and also seated behind us is Michael Duganier. They are two of the three owners of Publico Kitchen and Tap. I will be brief. It is my understanding that Parking Services is in favor of this variance request. So it's my experience that if you have staff in favor of something that you're requesting, it's better to keep it short and sweet. Just to elaborate a little bit, this is, as you can tell from the picture, this is the addition of a patio and seating area on the back of this pre-existing building, which was Garibaldi's prior to being Publico for some 20, 25, 30 years. And the addition of this patio is not taking away any of the already existing spaces. It is located next to a residential unit on one side and an empty building on the other. As has already been stated by the gentleman that was before us requesting a parking variance, and as you are aware, parking in 5 Points is very difficult. Before even doing this, the members of Publico did approach their neighbors to see if there was a way to possibly get other spaces before coming before you and requesting the variance, and that was a no-go. We've been made aware that, or we are aware that there's a parking area across the street, city's parking area where there are 34-something spaces. It's in very close proximity. The spaces include handicap parking, and that lot is available in close proximity, and customers going to Publico that need to find parking spaces can park in that lot, and it would open up additional parking spaces without requiring Publico to go and try to find 5 additional spaces. So I've had numerous conversations via phone and email with Mr. Spade and with Mr. Cook as we were trying to get this matter resolved, and was informed by Mr. Spade that they are in favor of the variance request. And we just ask that you approve that request today.
Do you have the application with you? I'd like to go through the criteria for a variance with you.
I do. Extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the subject property. The whole reason, or not the whole reason, but one of the main reasons that my clients chose this space is because of the back area and wanting to expand and have the outdoor seating that is available in that area, and that is also available to some of the other restaurants in the area. And as you've already stated, parking is there's just no additional parking to be gained from anywhere, even though they've tried. It will not unreasonably prohibit or restrict, because of the conditions, the requirement will prohibit or unreasonably restrict the use of the property, because without that, we would not be able to expand and have the back patio, which is why we're here. And the last is that the approval of the variance would not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district would not be harmed. Again, our suggestion is that the variance would allow the use of parking that's directly across the street. That is what 5 Points is about. It is a park and walk, or now it's kind of turned into an Uber and walk or shuttle and walk area. And so allowing us this variance and to use the additional parking across the street would not substantially detriment any other property or the public good, and would not harm the character of 5 Points.
Does anyone on the board have a question?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looking around, I don't see anybody, but maybe, is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against this request? I don't see anybody. Do I hear a motion? I move to grant the request because the extraordinary and exceptional conditions that apply to the property, they do not generally apply because the other parts of 5 Points have different settings and situations in terms of options for parking and outdoor eating. It would unreasonably restrict the use in the context of 5 Points, not to be able to proceed with the proposal without a variance, and it will not be a detriment to the area or to the public interest. It is the minimum necessary, again, given the problems that this and other people have faced, and it will be an improvement and thus an enhancement of 5 Points. I think also, as the applicant points out in their application, a great deal of pedestrians, traffic is coming there. This is not necessarily an attractor of people to park. People are walking to 5 Points generally or parking in 5 Points generally. Those are the grounds in support of my making this motion.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. The variance is granted. I think the next item is election of chair. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that in his absence, Chuck Sally be appointed chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Columbia.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations? Not hearing any, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of Mr. Sally as the next chair, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Unfortunately, the vice chair is already filled. So, is there any other business we need to address?
Yes, we have a new member of the board that's going to be joining us next month. Is Ms. Regina Williams. She's on the back row. So she'll be coming on board on the April meeting, so we certainly welcome her and look forward to working with her for the next few years. So that's all the business that we have today.
Welcome.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Meeting's adjourned. Pardon?